Um, Thanks for inviting me this evening. I'm going to give just a very brief overview about plant selection. And this is pretty general, but when you go to the nursery, there's a few things you need to look for these days in terms of how to identify fire-resistant plants versus more fire-prone plants when you're choosing species to put in that 30-foot zone around your home. So in general, this is just a quick bullet points. Hopefully everybody out there in video land can see this. But fire-resistant plants, and I'll just put the caveat out there, all plants will burn given enough heat. But some plants will just melt and fade away into the soil, and others will ignite other plants or structures. And so that's what we really mean by fire resistant versus fire prone. Some plants are more resistant, meaning they're less likely to turn into what we would call like a gasoline plant. They're less likely to ignite your home or ignite other vegetation around it. And other plants, like I guess it's the right-hand side of the list, kind of hard looking at the screen, but are plants that will really be a problem and what you need to avoid. So in general, fire-resistant plants have supple, moist leaves. So when you're in the nursery and you're looking at plants and what's beautiful, those are qualities you want to look for. Supple, moist leaves, things that are not overly bushy or twiggy. In that 30-foot zone, you need to look for plants that are generally low growing. And then also plants that have non-resinous sap. Around your home, you can check for plants like that by just breaking off a little twig and seeing what it looks like. Another important factor is low surface to volume ratio. And what that really means is if you know your plants even a little bit, most people know what a camellia looks like. That has big, broad leaves that do take up a lot of space, but its overall surface to volume is relatively low as compared to a plant like a juniper. So if you think about how a juniper looks with all its little twiggy branches and all that really fine, needly leaves, that's what we're talking about there. A camellia is a better choice than a juniper in that 30-foot zone around your home. Now, on the contrary, the fire-prone plants are mostly the opposite of this, right? They're needly leaves, they have stiff, woody, small, lacy leaves. They have volatile waxes, fats, terpenes, and oils. So they usually are very strong scented. A good example of that would be like juniper, also rosemary. People love to plant rosemary and everyone probably wants one in a pot somewhere, but don't put it right up against your house and leave plenty of space around it. Because if you've paid attention to that rosemary, unless you use a lot of it, it gets very dead, twiggy, dry material underneath it. And those are the types of plants we want to be very careful about. Some plants that are fire prone are pubescent. That means they have slightly fuzzy or hairy type leaves. They also may have loose, papery bark. Those are all things to look for. So we want in general, in that 30-foot zone around your home, we want to look for plants that, as I said, won't flame with an ignition, but will more smolder or melt into the ground. So the next slide, can you turn the slide? There we go. I think that's the right one. Here's some examples, because there's photographs there of fire-prone plants. So juniper, you see that particular juniper in the kind of upper center of the page. Part of it's been pruned away and you see all that dead material underneath. When you're curious about the plants around your home and if you should remove them or if you can let them be, lift up the branches and look underneath the plants and see what it looks like. And that will give you a very good clue on what needs to be removed or thinned out, or perhaps cut to the ground and let it rejuvenate itself. The one beneath that, that a lot of people do love to use as a quick growing screen in Nevada County is bamboo. Bamboo is technically a large grass. And as you know, we should keep all these grasses below 6 inches. Well, most people don't want their bamboo to be 6 inches tall. But bamboo has a very high ignition rate. It has a lot of dead, dry material, and it can ignite very rapidly. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a list of these very high ignition, fire-prone plants that really we need to avoid. So juniper, bamboo, arborvitaes, that's actually the one on the very right-hand side of the screen. That's a picture of an arborvitae. Italian cypress, they look very much like that too. They're apparently the fire folks like to call those Roman candles because when they ignite, it looks like just a fountain of fire. Rosemary, I mentioned, Scotch broom. We know we have lots of it all over Nevada County. The pines and scrub oaks can also get very dense and can be problematic. Next slide. Here's some images of fire-resistant plants and some specific examples of plants that are generally good or okay, I should say, closer to your home. And some of these, in general, we've talked about not having vegetation in the 0 to 5 foot perimeter of your home. And this is a good area if you don't already have a patio or a walkway, that if you have some plants, you should use some kind of gravel type mulch that won't ignite. Mulch is important because it helps to keep moisture in the soil, and that keeps your plants much healthier. And that's important. I'll get that to the next slide. But here's some examples of fire-resistant plants. They're listed by both botanical name and common name. And hopefully you're familiar with some of those. The heuchera is in the center, or coral bells, the center, that upper center picture. That's one of my favorites in Nevada County because it's green all year and just sends up these wispy, pink flowers in the spring and summertime. But it has these are all very low flammability, and many of them are native, which is also helpful for our pollinators and to provide for those beneficial insects all over our county. So just a quick list, there is the coral bells, columbine, yarrow can be okay if you cut it back. What else do I have in there is the dicentra, is bleeding heart, strawberry, irises, penstemon, blue-eyed grass, and then all of the sedums, dudleya, and echeveria, which is the hen and chicks. All the succulents are great. If a fire does come through and get too close to your house, most of those plants will just melt into the ground, and that's what we're looking for. And some of them, like the dicentra, the bleeding hearts, they will go dormant in the fall because there's not usually enough water, and then you can just clean up the spent leaves and flowers. And next slide.
Sheri, excuse me, I think we'll need you to go as quickly as you can through the last two slides. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to watch the clock there. But so the most important thing really is annual maintenance, that healthy plants are less prone to fire, make sure they're watered appropriately, keep your grasses low. As I mentioned, remove dead material, including stems, branches, flowers, clean up your needles and leaves, and then mulch appropriately to retain soil moisture. And then the last slide, I haven't really, I didn't get a chance to update this for this presentation, but the firesafemarin.org plant list is really one of the best resources that I've found. There's also publications by the Pacific Northwest Extension, firefree.org. I don't think that's on that slide. I know it's not on that slide, but I hope Bob posted that one. A lot of sites will have just a list of maybe 10 plants, like Cal Fire does, 10 plants to choose from, but that's not very much. So like I said, the Fire Safe Marin is really a good option. It has an extensive list of both annuals, perennials, shrubs, and trees to choose from. And then above that is really knowing your zone. Obviously, we are not Marin County. We do get snow and much more freezing days than they do there. So that's a place where you need to look at a list and then double check it with the parameters for our area, for the conditions. If you're using native plants, CalScape, that's put out by the California Native Plant Society, calscape.org, is a great website. But know your zone. Most of Nevada County is in USDA zone 7, 8, or 9, depending where you are in elevation. Pay attention to shade or sun conditions around your home. Pay attention to your soils. Up higher in elevation, we have more granitic soils that drain well, and lower down in the South County, we have a lot of really heavy clays. And then what kind of water will you be providing the plants? So quick summary of what to look for when you're choosing plants around your home.
Great job. Thank you very much.